Hi everyone, Taya here from Quilting Delights, and we are on the home stretch of finishing our feather under his wings, and I am so excited to be able to help you get this done. Now this portion of the quilt is going to be free motion quilting, and I know everybody panics a little bit when we talk about free motion quilting, but this is going to be super fast and super easy, and you're going to love how we can break it down into sections and then go from there. Now, I will tell you, there is one side of this, when we get started, there is one portion of this that is ruler work, but it's super easy, and you're going to love the way it fits in. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do on this quilt is we're going to take a colored thread that matches our feather, and we're going to do a swirl, kind of a plume, a little bit of a plume, off one side, and then you're going to do exactly the same thing off the other side. Now, instead of making that, so trying to get those to line up exactly up and down, what I want you to do is I want you to do it like a ribbon. So you're going to cross over in a couple of sections on purpose to make it look like that. The best way to do this is to practice it on paper and or draw it on your quilt before you sew it. Now it's kind of a it's kind of this pattern. I have to do it sideways, and you have to be very dramatic about how you draw this like that. If you just go straight up and do like this, it's going to look it's not going to look good. You want to have the drama to it, really go way out both directions to get that plume to add some texture to your quilt. You're going to do it both directions, one on this side and one on the other side. Practice drawing it first, practice drawing, and remember we're going to go way out on both sides, and then we're going to purposely cross over to get that ribbon effect. My quilting is much smoother than my drawing. I don't know if it's my pencil or what it is, but I want you to practice that. So again, we're going to go way out one direction, and then we're going to go way out the other direction. And the more dramatic you make this, the more texture it's going to add to your quilt. Okay, so we're going to practice that before we stitch it. Then I want you to take your quilt and I want you to look at what you've done. So for example, we did a motif in the corner here that bumps up to another design element. Well, in between there, so what I would do is I would kind of mark off, I'm just going to do it on here because this is a friction pen. You're going to mark off where you want this next element to be, and we're going to take it right to the edge of the plume. That's why you need these plumes in here. And what we did here was we said, okay, this corner section that butts up to the triangles in the square and that butts up to the triangles over on this side, this corner we're going to do all straight lines. So you're going to have straight lines to do here, and when you come down, and I would mark them. I would definitely take your ruler and mark them. Now we don't have these even widths apart. They're somewhere between a ½ inch. Some of them are 3/8 of an inch. Some of them are a 1/4 inch. But mark your lines, and that's going to be a design element in this corner. Then we're going to move to the next corner, which is the feather. And we've drawn the feather, but that feather itself is going to be free motion. And then we just used the 1/4 inch foot, and we echo quilted a 1/4 inch away from the lines until we got up to that next design element. And that's how you fill that corner. We'll do the corners first because they're the easiest. And it's the same thing on the corner with the ovals, where we did the ovals. We just picked a point here and started going out from that point and working our way around. Same thing on this side. We went out from the corner, and look at this cool little element right here. When the two sides coincided, they made a crossover that added just one more fun thing for your eye to look at. Moving over a little bit, we just again said, okay, we're going to draw an area where we want this next design element to stop. And we literally just drew a line like this, and that's where we went to. And we made our turn. We did a wave going the opposite direction from the other ones. Everything in quilting is about the drama of it. The more dramatic your quilting, the more interesting it is for people to look at. So on this one, from where we drew the line, we just started using our foot to echo quilt a wave that matched the line for the most part, and went back and forth all the way down. So you can use your foot, your 1/4 inch stitch regulator foot or your ruler work foot to make these waves. Notice at the bottom here, when we got to the corner, we had to adjust for making that turn, and I think it just turned out beautiful. Okay, the rest of this is going to be practicing about 4 different styles of quilting. And what I'm going to show you is that we took this inside area, inside the triangles, and all we did was we practiced this. It was just take a piece of paper, and you're going to go up, and then you're going to come back, and you're going to go up again. Now, what's funny is I tend to do all of my swirls to the inside, so every once in a while I have to remind myself to go the opposite direction, which I can't seem to do right now. So on mine, sometimes all of my swirls end up going the same direction. And it looks like that's what's going to happen today. So we just fill the whole thing with swirls like this. And like I said, the best way to do this is to practice on a piece of paper first and see what happens when you travel. So the whole thing about fills and free motion quilting for backgrounds is learning how to make the twists and turns. So that's what I'm talking about here. And the more you practice on paper, the smoother your quilting is going to be when you get to your project. Remember, we are still doing pencil on the paper with practice, and then it's the paper under the pencil that's moving when we get to the real thing. So that's an idea for you for the swirls, but just make sure you know what effect you want. Like I said, all of mine go to the inside. The one that I have the most fun with is pebbles, and I love pebbles. A really great friend of mine told me when you quilt pebbles, what you want to think of is dimes, nickels, and quarters. So we're going to vary the size of our pebbles, our circles, and I want to show you a little bit about how to travel with them. So let's just start on an edge, and it's almost like doing crazy 8s, although sometimes you have to travel on an edge, and you do want to leave some space in between because you know rocks are not perfectly round, and how you get from one place to another is we travel a little bit on that edge. And again, practice is what's going to help you, and I want you all to be practicing on paper so that you can get a feel for how to do this. Now I have more nickels than I have dimes and quarters, so let me do a couple of, there's a dime, there's a quarter, and there's a nickel, and we're just going to keep traveling. Now you want to make sure that you're filling the space that you want to fill. So when you do this, if you look at our quilt, our feather, you can see that we started at the edge of where we did our straight lines, and we did the inside around the plume, and there are some places that we started and stopped. For example, the fill that goes into the feathers, you want to make sure that that's a start and a stop in itself, and then you can move on to the next section. The great thing about doing pebbles around the feather is that you can actually get up inside each of the feathers and lay those down between the feathers, and it makes the feathers pop up even more. So you're going to practice your pebbles, and then let's go to the other side here. We've got quite a few. If anybody needs some close-up pictures, feel free to call us and we will get those, or you can check on our website. I will post some pictures on the website under, let's see, where will I do that? I'll do it as a free download so that you can just go to the free download page and take a look at that. Okay, so another kind of design, fill design, is swirls. And I like it, but I have a little bit of repair work to do here. If you notice, when I did this, I did not get all the way up into the feathers, so I'm going to come back and fill those in because I want that to lay down. I don't want it puffy like this. I want it to actually lay down. So I'll come back in and fix those. But swirls are similar to what we were doing before, only when you do a swirl, instead of coming back on itself, you're going to come back like this. And see how we've left quite a bit of room? And then we're going to come back around. And then we're going to go out, big swirl, and then come back around, and another big swirl. Whoops, I didn't do that one very well. In and then out. And this is why we practice on paper. Big swirl, in and out. And you'll notice that you need to get really into, the swirl a lot so that we can fill that space. So let me just see. Yeah, there we go. And so if you just practice doing these swirls, and we're trying to fill up space. So this one is much better. This is wrong. This is way too much space here in the center. We really need to get these filled in all the way across. So that's another one to practice. And you can see we've done a really great job here. And then we filled in with some more circles. The one that I'm working on and working with a lot right now, it takes a little more practice than the others, but I love it because it's kind of a teardrop paisley. And the thing with this teardrop paisley is learning how to travel. So I'm going to start with a paisley, and a paisley is just a little teardrop. Oh, now today it's working just great. Sometimes I do these and I can't get them to travel. And they don't all have to be right next to each other. That's just the tendency that you and I have. We can make them halves. We can make them, well, that one I wouldn't do, but you can travel along the edge to change direction and do them an opposite direction, and then fill in a little here. So there's all kinds of opportunities to do that. You can make them different shapes. You can make them more, I call these deviled eggs. You can make them rounder. And when you do the round ones, it's interesting to me, when I'm doing a round one, I want to just keep traveling. And when I do a teardrop, I tend to want to go backwards over the teardrop, back and forth. And I don't know if it's because I'm trying to make this round and this pointy. That might have to do with it. But this is a fun one to practice and learn how to travel. This reminds me of the little sedum plants that we have in our backyard in a bucket that just kind of grow and fall off the edge of the pot. And that's what you want with this. But we do want to get it so that it's filling in larger space. So I tend to draw smaller than I quilt. So my suggestion is that you learn to draw the same size that you're going to quilt. And there's nothing that says you can't come back on this a second and third time. In fact, if you alternate one repeat versus two repeats, you're going to get a lot more texture in your quilting. So there's that one. Let's see what happens when we do 3 on this one. Well, the nice part about doing 3 is it fills in a whole lot faster. So now I can just pull that in. So you want to be sure that you're changing direction with these, as well as filling in as much space as possible. This is one where you don't want a lot of space left in between, where with the pebbles we have it tighter and we still need some space there. But these are all great practice ideas, and on every single one of them, on a piece like this that we're doing, you want to actually mark the sections that you're going to do your quilting, and what motif you're going to do there so that you have a really good idea when you sit down at your machine. I would practice on paper. And then I would take that particular one and go put it on your quilt. And then I would come back and I would practice a different one. And I would come back and I would put that one down on my quilt. And then I would practice my pebbles. And I would come back to my quilt and I would lay those pebbles down all the way around. There's more pebbles than there is anything because it's such an easy, great way to quilt. But don't hesitate and don't be afraid to practice on paper and then mark off where you're going to stitch things on your feather quilt, on your Under His Wings quilt top, so that you know exactly where you're going to lay your designs down. I wouldn't do these all in one sitting. I would break this up into 3 or 4 sittings and do a little bit at a time. You're going to feel much more accomplished and less overwhelmed if you just do a small section at a time. Now, once you're all done, you're going to square it up, and squaring it up is going to mean something like, oh, okay, we did all of these straight lines over here, so let's use the straight line corner as the starting point for squaring up our quilt so that we're square to the lines that we have. Once you start on this side, then you can square it up all the way around. On our website, quiltingdelights.com, if you go to free downloads, there are 3 different ways to finish your quilt top. You can do the standard traditional quilt binding, which is what we did on here because I had this beautiful stripe. There's a new way to add a peeper all the way around, which I think would be fantastic on this. And if you don't want any binding to show, then use the facing the edge of a quilt so that you've got triangle fabrics in the back that you can stick a dowel in and you can just hang it on the wall. So this is our last class for Under His Wings. Please watch for new projects that we have posting on quiltingdelights.com. We are very excited to continue your quilting journey and continue our quilting journey with you. Thanks a lot. Make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel, and we will see you soon.